So here I am inside the matrix, surrounded by the astrology chart. And I'm making this video to draw attention to what's right down there, which is Jupiter moving into Capricorn. You see it happened yesterday, late in the day. And I wanted to talk about, especially as it relates to the coronavirus and what we're dealing with. We saw yesterday a real shift in how this is being described, how this is coming about, how we now realize that it's possible to have, even 100,000 or more deaths if we don't get this distancing right, and if we don't get this whole situation under control. It was very sobering because this came from the president, who has been in the past, in the last week or so even, like, we got to get back to work. We got to get back to work. We got to, start letting other people, start mixing, because it's only a few hot spots and we should be in church in April for Easter, and just not tuned into reality. With all due respect for his reasons, he wants to keep us hopeful or whatever it might be, or worried about the economy. Everyone is worried about that, but we're not going to have an economy if we come back together too soon and we get death tolls in the millions and we completely destroy the health system, and then we'll be out of work for God knows how long. So again, this point was driven home, obviously to him over the weekend, the sobering realities, and he spoke it. And this is very much Jupiter moving into Capricorn. I did a video recently about how Jupiter in Capricorn, again, is literally bringing our thoughts out of the hopeful, here's my teachings, here's what I believe. And again, as I said, it's not just about our spiritual beliefs, it's what we believe about whatever. And just the rhetoric and the hope and again, that's part of Sagittarius. But the next sign is Capricorn, where instead of what we hope, now we have to deal with what is, the reality. Doesn't matter what he hopes or what we all hope. We all hope. We all want to go back to work. None of us want to be doing this. And we're all hopeful that it'll get better. But now we take that into the realm of reality, which is the Capricorn realm. So now, instead of it being some false hope, some blind faith, some faith that somehow it'll all magically disappear or whatever, now we realize that this is the facts on the ground. This is the reality that we're dealing with. And the reality that of what we've already put into motion because of the mixing before is that if we just stopped right now and let this social distancing continue, a good case scenario would be like under 100,000. I think it could be quite a bit less than that even, especially if it's strictly adhered to. I think pockets of the country that hasn't been taking it seriously are going to explode, because even last week and recently they've still been in beaches and whatever, So aside from that, this shift from the rosy projection of Sagittarius and Jupiter to the facts on the ground and the cold reality of Capricorn, particularly with Mars and Saturn already there, is what we're seeing. And we saw the foreshadowing yesterday, as you can see, while he was doing that press conference. Jupiter was literally hours from being in Capricorn. He was literally already in Capricorn for all intents and purposes, hours away from it. And you saw that in his language. Time to get real. Now, we also had some very good news, and as I had explained, that we're going to see this shift. Yes, Jupiter's debilitated in Capricorn, showing what I just said. We're not going to be feeling so excited and happy anymore. Now it's bam, all of the cold facts on the ground. And that's going to compel us to put our teachings into practice now. Beyond all of our rosy scenarios of what we hoped, now it's the facts on the ground. Now how much hope do you have? Now how much do you remember those teachings? Now how much do you feel your inspirations? Now that you're being pressured and there's fear and stress and worry. Okay? But again, we have cause for optimism because now we have some real data. And again, this is part of Jupiter. And it's encouraging. I thought it would be encouraging, and it is, because we started the real social isolation, at least in the U.S., a few weeks ago. we see that the rate of increase in New York, for example, is only doubling now once every 6 days. Middle of last week, it was every 3 to 4 days. The beginning of last week, it was like every 1 to 2 days. So there was hopeful news the middle of last week that it was only doubling about every 3 to 4 days. Now the rate of increase is doubling about every 6 days. Notice this is exponential. So maybe in 3 or 4 days from now, the rate of increase, the numbers will show that it's only maybe every 12 days. Because again, it's an exponential curve. So 2 to 3 days, we might see that it's only doubling every 12 days. Maybe even by the early part of April, April 5th or so, April 5th, through the 10th, maybe the exponential doubling will be every 20 days or so. Now again, that's a doubling. So this is how exponential numbers work, right? So if there's 100,000 now, this means it'll be a couple 100,000 cases 6 days from now. If it stays at that, then it'll be another couple 100,000 6 days from there. You see how these numbers double. 100,000 to 200,000, then 200,000 to 400,000. That's what exponential doubling means. This is why once you get these numbers, they were sobering a couple weeks ago. It was like, oh, just if we stopped it now, the exponential curve would mean what it means. But it's definitely encouraging because it shows that the social distancing has been working with this Saturn, Mars in Capricorn. Again, that was also happening with Jupiter in Sagittarius. So these people partying on spring break, I ain't worried about it, and nothing going to get in the way of my partying. This is the negative Jupiter in Sagittarius right in front of you. It'll be okay. I'm going to party and have fun, and I'm living life. This is the difficult quality of Jupiter. I believe it'll be okay. They're not thinking that now. And so, again, everybody's taking this seriously now. Jupiter is in Capricorn now. The other hopeful news came out of San Francisco, which was probably the first city in the U.S. to impose an immediate everybody stay home rule. And this was also a couple weeks ago. I lived in San Francisco for 20 years, so as soon as they did it, I was like, that's a good idea. Because everybody's so on top of each other in San Francisco. It's 7 by 7 miles of just people packed densely together. Even more dense than New York, frankly. New York is larger and there's more people in it, but especially downtown San Francisco, it's nothing but, certain places like Nob Hill and Lower Nob Hill, even out in the avenues, you're just nothing but people and stores piled on top of each other. So social distancing has really showed an effect. Their expected crush by now is much less than they had thought. Because they said, everybody shut down, go home. And this is also where you have all these tech companies, again, all these buildings where people go into these buildings, sit in their cubicle and work on their computer, in the Mission or somewhere, and then they go home, riding the public transportation, riding the BART and the buses. So that social distancing really worked. The early numbers, and keep your fingers crossed because it's not a foregone conclusion yet, but the numbers look good. Again, this is reason for hope, Jupiter, based on facts and reality and the cold hard data, which is Capricorn. Again, these things come together now because in Capricorn we have Saturn and we have Mars, which means when Saturn went into Capricorn the end of January, this is when when China started the big crackdown, the big lockdown, everybody stay home, quarantine, all this right when Saturn went into Capricorn. All this quarantining started. That's Saturn in Capricorn. Again, notice how effective that is. That's been the main thing to stop it. Stay home, go home. Saturn in Capricorn. Because there's danger, right? Mars is also there again, so now it's going to be this Herculean struggle to have the courage. Look at all the courage. Even just look in the news at how much the news now is about the courage of the healthcare workers all around the world We're recognizing the courage of the healthcare workers, the courage of the people delivering our food. Again, this is Mars in Capricorn. We're recognizing the courage of the people. Notice how that's been such a focal point, even the last week or so since Mars went into Capricorn. Now Jupiter is there, and we're getting hope based on actual numbers, not some pie in the sky, let's hope it all works out. We'll be at church in Easter or some other kind of, it'll just disappear. No. Facts, fact-based, reality check, sense of hope. Things that are actually happening. And like I said from the beginning, I think it's not going to be as bad as what could be the worst. And the worst could be utterly catastrophic. And I've never thought it's going to be that bad, that terrible scenario, because of this astrology that I'm talking about. And that's why I keep talking about it. This is a good case study. In addition to that, we also have up there, as I'm in the matrix, right up there, we have Venus. And by the way, Venus Moon, this was on Sunday when the press conference was happening, but Venus is in Taurus until August. So again, this is why I said it seems inconceivable to me that this is going to be just a horrible, nightmarish scenario, or whatever has been happening, we're going to start to see it turn around with all of this dignified planets in Capricorn, which is about handling it, no matter how hard it is, getting through it, with courage, with focus. Venus in Taurus, which is caretaking, caregiving, people pulling together. In fact, we even see quite a bit of people pulling together even around the politics and stuff. We're going to see more of that, putting a lot of the politics aside, not attacking the other parties and stuff, but also obviously culturally. But then in a couple weeks, we also have the sun is going to go into Aries. Again, I think this is going to show even more of an exponential shot in the arm, because we're going to need it, because we have about a week of an exponential doubling. So we can expect it maybe to get twice as bad this week. And I hope that by this time next week, by like April 6th or 7th, by next Monday, the exponential doubling curve will have been doubled in half twice. So instead of it being 12 days, I'm hoping it'll be something like 18 to 24 days. What that means is that then it will only be doubling by the end of April. But again, that still means that there will be twice as many more expected by the end of April. But again, that could come down drastically because these are exponential. So I think, again, I have reason to be hopeful, because the things that have been bringing it down, we're going to keep doing. It's not like the things that have brought the numbers down, we're not doing them anymore. No. It's the distancing that has blunted the curve early, and I have been saying the whole time that I think we started doing it quite early, earlier than Italy did in their curve. They keep saying we're Italy. We kind of are, but we were about a week to 10 days before Italy imposed the massive social distancing, especially in the larger centers. And I will also make a grave prediction, sadly, that the places that didn't are going to see a spike. Like, for example, New Orleans, because of the Mardi Gras, and unfortunately for them, we weren't taking it seriously enough then as a country. And the Mardi Gras probably is what meant the spike for Louisiana. We're going to probably see in Florida too, because of all that beaches and stuff, and their governor was very passive about insisting that people stay away from beaches and all. So there's going to be some pockets still, but the things that we were doing, we're still doing. And that's going to blunt the overall aggregate doubling exponential destruction that could happen. And hopefully we can then arrive at a number that's not so much worse than the seasonal flu, which kills 30 to 60,000 a year in and of itself, the seasonal influenza. So anyway, I wanted to come from you from inside the matrix, and I hope this was helpful for you to hear. Share it with others if it was. Like it, share it, and we'll talk soon.